So welcome everyone to this, well, I am sorry, I am losing my signals. This is not a good way to start it, huh? Okay, we will figure this out. I suddenly, there's my screen. So welcome everyone again to the panel discussion on motivating members to get started on pathways. And so we can get off to a good start, which I am not apparently doing because I am trying to figure out why we have the screen being taken away. I'm so sorry, this is a funny start. But Carol, could you check why we have, I seem to be getting, I'm not seeing my screen. Nikhil, you're the one I'm seeing on my screen. How is that happening?
Have you got it in speaker view, maybe?
Yes, that is so strange.
A lot of people pay a lot of money for this, Michelle.
Yes, but seriously, I cannot seem to get control back. Let me see.
You don't see it, but it is there, the screen.
Okay.
We all see everybody, so be assured that everybody is here, Michelle. And
okay.
Go
wonderful,
ahead.
Wonderful. I was just wondering because if he was muted. So there we are. Whew. This is the beauty of technology. You get a little bit lost and then you get right back. So hopefully now you're seeing my first slide, which is motivating members to start on pathways. That's the cover slide. And I want us now to go on to the second slide, which just showed you actually what was happening when things don't go quite right. But this is what we want to do during this to ensure that the entire session runs smoothly. So this session will be recorded and shared. It's already being recorded and it will be shared. Handouts and links will be posted on the chat. 3, and very important, as you already observed a while ago, please mute yourself when you're not speaking, because when you don't mute yourself, then you grab the screen. Your video off, please, if you leave your computer, because especially if somebody is speaking and they see empty seats, that's kind of discouraging for them. Each panelist will speak for 3 to 5 minutes, and we will be brutal about that 3 to 5. There'll be one exception, and I will mention who when I introduce him. If you have questions or comments, type them into the chat. Somebody will be monitoring them, myself as well as Carol. And finally, all the Q&As will be done after all the panelists have spoken. So we will first go through all the panelists. So let me now introduce, and it is such an honor to be introducing an amazing team. Our first panelist will be Lori Haynes. Lori Haynes has been with Toastmasters for nearly 5 years. And like many of us, she joined to improve her presentation skills, but quickly found herself developing other skills as well. An avid learner, she is excited that there are so many different topics to explore in Pathways. She has selected visionary communication as her first path. Lori is Area 21 Director and Lead Pathways Guide for District 62 in Michigan, USA, and she will be our first panelist. Our second panelist will be Randy Cooper. Randy completed 2 levels in motivational strategies and the icebreaker in dynamic leadership. He served as District 77 Director from 2016 to 17 and is VP Education for Roundtable Advanced Club. In struggling to help people get involved, Randy has found that offering and providing information for simplicity of use has been the best approach. Our panelist number 3 is Carole McCulloch. Carole is a DTM. She's been an active Toastmaster and leader in on-site and online clubs for 17 years. Pathways inspired and challenged her to complete the effective coaching path and the mentoring program in 2018. She did an HPL with a collaborative team that selected and led 30 online pathways guides, or the OPGs as we call ourselves, for 150 undistricted clubs. Carole is District 73 Pathways Coordinator and aims to complete a Pathways DTM in 2019. Our fourth panelist is Brian Dodd. Brian is a Canadian, having been born as a Shashir. I said I wouldn't laugh, but having been born, having been born nearly 80 years ago in the phony war, he has been following pathways. You guys just read it. Anyway, Brian is one of the people who started pursuing the revitalized education program long before any of us. When he first heard Pat Johnson, past international President Pat Johnson, reporting on the REP at the 2014 Toastmaster International Convention in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Our fifth panelist is Cate Arnold. Cate Arnold is District 7 Club Growth Director. She conceptualized and created the popular D7 AAA Pathways Award program, which motivated members to start on Pathways earlier. The Toastmasters International February stats show that the District 7 Club submitted more Pathways Awards than traditional programs, showing that her triple award program worked. Our sixth panelist is George Marshall. George has been a member of Toastmasters for over 16 years and has earned 3 DTMs. He led the launch of Pathways in District 57, the very first pilot district, and later led the launch of Pathways for the undistricted clubs. He was awarded the prestigious presidential citation last year, and George is the only one who will get more than 3 to 5 minutes. He will get about 6.5 minutes because his is a recording and he doesn't get to answer any of the questions later on. So it's fair. Now, saving the best for last, and I get to say that because our seventh panelist is going to be Julie Kertesz. It is now 2 years since Julie started on Pathways and began her journey. 5 paths and others on the way later, she feels Pathways had changed her life yet again. Soon, 85, most of the time at home, besides New Horizons, the new education program brought her many friends she would not have known otherwise. Her Pathways blog has over 112,000 hits. So now we will stop the screen share and bring up our first panelist, Lori. Did Lori drop out?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. Can you believe that it's been over 2 years since we started Pathways? At least for some of us. For others, it hasn't quite been a year yet. As the lead guide in District 62, I realized soon on that some clubs were really embracing Pathways, while others didn't even seem to know that we had a new educational program. And as I worked with different clubs, I realized that those who were successful in having their members adopt Pathways were the ones that were integrating Pathways in their meetings. What do I mean by this? Our clubs had visits by ambassadors and guides. They gave some presentations. But there is so much to Pathways, isn't there? Too much for just a couple presentations. By integrating Pathways into your clubs, you help educate your members, both new and old, and your guests as to what Pathways is, and helps them feel more comfortable with it. To help clubs, I compiled a list of 51 ideas of how to integrate Pathways. Now, Michelle, I have time to mention all of those 51 ideas tonight, right?
Right, as long as you talk a mile a minute.
All right, maybe I can't talk that fast, and I don't want to put anyone to sleep. So I'll just share a couple of areas and just give you a couple of ideas just so you know what I mean. And then I'll post a link to the full list in the chat. One area where you can integrate pathways is by talking about pathways projects in your meeting. Say, for example, a new member is giving their pathways icebreaker. The Toastmaster of the day could talk about what the next projects are in level 1. This helps educate the new member so they know what to do, as well as helps the other members become comfortable with what's in pathways as you begin. Now, as you do this, you become very adept in talking about the projects very briefly, because you probably don't have a lot of extra time in your meetings, especially if you're in a corporate club with a really tight schedule. But you can briefly talk about projects to help educate everyone what's in pathways. Another way to talk about projects is when people have completed a level. As you're presenting the level completion certificate, you could ask, what projects are you looking forward to in your next level? And if the person's looked ahead, they might know 1 or 2 projects and talk about it. If not, be ready and have a list of the projects for that level so that you can give a brief description of what's coming ahead. Now, that's going to be really fun when your members are working in the upper levels where the projects are so different across the paths. Another area where you can integrate pathways into your club is by having your members share their experiences. Now, we do this already, don't we? And we know how powerful it is to hear other people's experiences. One way you can do this is if you've noticed that someone has recently chosen a path. In the next meeting, ask that person, which path did you choose and why did you pick it? It's amazing to hear the reasons why people chose their particular path. Now, I will warn you, make sure you note the name of the path because that member, especially if they're new, might not remember the name because the paths are so new to them. Another way you can share people's experiences or have them share it is after they've completed a level. You could ask, what was your favorite project in that level? Or what did you learn while working through that level? It's another way that your members sitting around the table can hear the powerful stories of those who were going through pathways and be encouraged to join pathways and get started themselves. Now, I've just given you a couple of ideas, but by integrating pathways into your clubs, you help educate and help people, both new members and seasoned members, understand more about pathways so they feel more comfortable themselves and are more likely to start working in pathways, and they're better able to talk to your guests about pathways to let them understand what they would be doing if they joined your club. And the guests get to hear or get to see the amazing opportunities that they'll have if they join your club. By integrating pathways, it really helps everyone in the club.
Thank you so much. Those were very inspiring suggestions. Thank you, Lori. Now let's bring up our second panelist, Randy Cooper. Oh, welcome, Randy. Randy,
Okay, I'm doing the PowerPoint presentation right now.
Okay.
Okay, from beginning. All right.
I think you started at the end, so you need to slide all the way back.
All right.
This is like the movies where you do the end and then you flash back to the beginning.
What happened here?
You will have to go You have to
From the
get
beginning.
out of share. There you are.
Stop. Okay, let's try from the beginning. Okay, here we are. Okay, pathways made simple. One of the things is people find pathways frustrating, and it's been in our district for less than a year. But pathways to me is like a coconut, a tough exterior, tasty on the inside. But when you talk about the interface, that's the exterior, and that's where a lot of people have problems and they get discouraged. So we need to make it simple so that they get into it. So what I'm going to talk about is level 1 in general, basic navigation, and navigation challenges I faced. Now, level 1's the same in all levels, and some people don't even understand level 1. Level 1 is broken up into the icebreaker. Project 2 is the feedback. Project 3, which is research. And the icebreaker must be done first. You won't see the other 2 projects until you see the icebreaker. So you must complete that. Project 2 is where people get confused. You all agree? So it's into 3 different tasks: speech 1, speech 2 using the feedback from speech 1. It could be the same speech or a different speech, but you must use the feedback. And then a speech evaluation. 3 different tasks. Now, I have a routine for getting into pathways to help you to make it easy. I say I limp through the interface. That's a good way to put it. And I just finally decided to do things a particular way, just keep it simple. I don't think a lot of people care about this stuff, that you can store stuff on the base camp, the evaluation zone. So let's just get them started, in my opinion. Just get them in. Complete the pre-assessment. That's one of the first things I do. Download the project checklist and evaluation forms. That's what I do. Other people may put those somewhere else or collect them. Complete the project and have it evaluated. Once you're done with that, then complete the post-assessment. I've heard of people complete the project, they don't know to complete the assessments, the pre and the post, and then there are others who don't complete the projects and go all the way through the assessment. So I think this routine will help. Continue when all projects are complete. When you've done the post-assessment, submit for approval. When you've done all your 3 projects for level 1, submit for approval. After the level is approved, go to Club Central, and because you're not going to get the Distinguished Club Program credit just by having it approved and going to the next level, you have to also get somebody approved for the Club Central. They're 2 easy steps, but they both need to be done. Now, I've run into 2 particular issues on the navigation. Some people may have run more. My first issue is not finding the arrows or the buttons when I first came in. And I've been software engineering programmer for 20 years. And the other one is I'd accidentally close out of Basecamp, which was not good. It would be frustrating. The only good thing is you get back to where you closed out of, but I hate to have to go back in. But here's some things that help me to deal with it and try to keep it simple. There may be other ways. First, to avoid not finding the arrows, maximize all your windows. You will see everything if you just maximize your windows. I found that's the simplest thing to do. If others got other ideas, that's fine, but that's been my thing. And then closing out all the windows by mistake, I use Chrome. And what I do is I use my mouse and look for the little windows that I have. If I have multiple windows, and check to see which window I want to close. Some people will use the tabs, but with Chrome, when I use the tabs, it backfired and I couldn't find it. So just make sure that you hover your mouse over what you need to close. What's next? Hopefully you're ready to start level 1. That's the goal. Get everybody to level 1, complete level 1, ready to help other people. They understand it, and hopefully the exterior of the coconut is shattered. And if you have any questions or you want anything, this is my email address, d77cooper@gmail.com.
Thank you very much. And I have to say, it was a perfect 5 minutes. Thank you so much, Randy. Let us now bring up our 3rd panelist. And that's going to be, you've all met her already, our co-host. Let's welcome Carole McCulloch.
Thank you, Toastmasters. Welcome guests to this panel where in places you will get a little bit of a shake-up. Yes, I'm here to give you some of the dark side today. First thing I want to do is tell you that my presentation today is based on the need for support. The need for support for everybody involved in getting into pathways. Let me share the first site with you today. What we did in District 73 is we began to talk about ways of helping those who are at the beginner level, just starting on pathways, and those who are new to e-learning. This has provided quite a lot of help for them in breaking down the barriers. We have developed what we call the District 73 Pathways Learner Guide. You know what? This was the missing piece in everything that we've been given. We needed to help those who are brand new to e-learning. The second thing that I wanted to focus on was how do we help those who are experienced Toastmasters? Now, have you ever heard of RPL? This is the recognition of prior learning. It's quite a big topic, and I've covered some of it in my latest blog that you will see in the link that I provide for you in a moment. But here's where I think I want to shake things up a little bit. You know what? I'm bored with levels 1 and 2. I've done levels 1 and 2 4 times. I want to be recognised for what skills I already bring. What I think could happen is that we provide a recognition of that prior learning so that a Toastmaster can skip levels 1 and 2 and move straight into the exciting part of level 3. We may want to breathe life into levels 1 and 2 because we have to do those at the moment, but I think we're going to lose out some of our experienced Toastmasters because of that way in which Basecamp asks them to do that every time they start a path. And it does become tedious. So I want to introduce the RPL process. I'm going to scroll now so things might move a little bit quickly for you. I want to ensure that experienced Toastmasters can level up into a new adventure in Pathways because this is where the excitement begins. Level 3 gives you new required projects and it begins the electives. Now, I'm a big fan of the electives, and in my workshops that I do now for my District 73 clubs, I take along laminated copies of all of the electives and I distribute them around the group because I want them to get excited about the content. I want them to level up into a new adventure. The third aspect of support is going to be the Basecamp manager's support. We've made a beginning here in Region 12. We do have a community of practice for all Basecamp managers who are, of course, the president, the VPE and the secretary. But guess what? They weren't given any training on what they have to do in order to verify and check things in Basecamp. So we need to support them. So we do have a group called the Basecamp Managers Community of Practice, and we're drawing people in. One of the things that I believe needs to happen at club level is where we help the new executives understand what new roles are included in being a president, VPE, or a secretary. Let them know before they nominate for that role so that they're prepared. And the biggest thing that we need to do across all of our district is support the clubs as they move forward to June 2020. So we have some targets in place. We say to clubs, ensure that you have at least 75% take-up of pathways by the end of this year. And then your target for June 2020 is more manageable because at that point you want 100% take-up of pathways in your club. So ladies and gentlemen, Toastmasters, I think we need to think differently now and support all three of those clearly defined positions in our clubs: the learners, the beginners, the members, the experienced, the Toastmasters and the mentors, and finally, the base camp managers. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Carole. Thank you. That was quite an interesting spin on how we can get our members motivated to start on Pathways. And moving on, let's have our fourth panelist, Brian Dodd.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, or Chair. Let me share my screen. Make sure I got the right one.
Technology is always fascinating. I realized a while ago when I was introducing that I didn't have my headset plugged in, so I apologize for all the noise you must have heard.
Now I'm stuck at where to go to get started.
Brian, just click the present button at the top.
Yeah, I know it's hiding, but it's hiding Brian my own image.
Yeah. See, we're seeing it, Carole, but he's not. He's seeing our little faces.
Anyways, one of the senior members at my club, not that she's older than I am, but she'd been in Toastmasters longer than me, said, well, I'm not going to start Pathways. I'm going to carry on, and then I leave Toastmasters on, June the 20th, 2020, or June 30th. So I said, okay, I will come up with some stuff. I presented this. Everybody said, well, that's too busy. Yeah, that's all the 10 paths that's on there, but they're already missing the 11th one. So I think, it's time to out with the old. And there's some more old.
Brian, you're still on the first slide. Is that what you want us to see?
Pardon?
You're still on the first slide. Slide the faces down to the bottom of the screen so you can access your controls.
Yeah, okay.
Because you are now at 2 minutes.
So there's the 15 manuals, and she was concerned that she couldn't find anything. Well, we all know now that there's 11 paths, and here they are. Effective body language. Wow, that's in there. Same as CC number 5. Inspire your audience. Same as CC number 10. And high performance leadership is in both manuals. However, there is one thing.
Your share button, try clicking it because the slides change. Click the share again.
Are you looking at a slide with the icebreaker on it?
No, we're still seeing the first slide. You haven't started present or view slide. We're still seeing your setup.
Brian, I'm going to request remote control so that I can slide your slides.
Okay, I'm on, I've got the slides. You can quickly go through them, and I'm on slide 7.
I don't yet have your permission.
I gave it to you.
This is so much fun. This just shows how technology, even with the most tech people, can go awry. But anyway, Brian, why don't you just go ahead and talk to us then in the last 2 minutes that you have left? Actually, 1 minute and 14 seconds.
Oh, I see what's happening. I don't have control over my own screen anymore. The last slide I was going to show you actually showed 3 different manuals. The one from the 1940s and 50s, which had an icebreaker in it. The one from the CC manual that we just had, which had an icebreaker in it. And the screen where you go through the icebreaker and start with an icebreaker. So the one consistent thing through Toastmasters has been the icebreaker, and all your other speeches are in there with maybe different names, but they're still there. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. I guess the Cheshire cat did come out of its box. Meow. Sorry about that, Brian. If we have time afterwards, if you got all your slides queued up properly and we ran out of questions from our audience, then maybe we can go back and you can show us our slides. For now, let us move on to our 5th panelist, who's already all queued up, looks like, and smiling. Let's welcome Cate Arnold.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about things from a more basic level. Let's see. So, starting with one thing for us to remember is the value, both what happens when it goes well and when it doesn't. My dad worked on the Apollo program. I grew up in the Houston Space Flight Center era. He worked with thousands of engineers and mathematicians who were brought in from around the country. And he said his life was full of math and meetings. And that's what it took to get to the moon, was people learning how to communicate effectively with one another and sharing knowledge as they find things out. Another thing I thought that was interesting was that survey that said they surveyed 1,400 executives, employees, and educators, and 86% said that it was a lack of collaboration communication which caused workplace failures. So we know how valuable it can be to learn to speak and how to communicate well, but how to do it in this new era of pathways, it's been a bit of a challenge. When I give presentations on pathways, I usually start with, okay, I'm so sorry. How much time am I at so far?
1:48.
Okay. I ask people, how many of them have worked somewhere where they went through a system conversion? And usually somewhere between 75% to all of the people in the room will raise their hands. Then I ask them, and for how many of you, it was a piece of cake. The system was so much better than the old system. It just rolled in, no problem. No one ever raises their hand. And that's because whenever we change systems, we have to go from something we know to learning something different. It's almost better if we start with not knowing anything at all, because we keep going back and forth between what worked and what didn't, and how do we do this. And is that it's having our brain need to learn a new way of doing things. And in pathways, unlike the work environment, people start, it's difficult, everybody's unhappy, they aren't working, but they have to learn it, or else they're not going to have a job, because eventually that's what's going to be used. We're in the same boat. So we need to help people be encouraged to do it. And what I found is that one of the biggest things we do is we spend so much time talking about what it's like, oh, the new system, what is going to work, what's good, what's bad. When I bet to get going, to get over that learning curve of using a new system, because once you do, you're done. You're using it, you've moved on, you know how you're communicating within the organization, and it all works well. So what we came up with in District 7, I did as an HPL project, was what we called the AAA award. We were encouraging people to get going. So rather than talking about it 12 times, we were encouraging people to start. They'd earn an early adopter award by completing the icebreaker within a 3-month period. Early by finishing a level 1 in 6 months. And then the part that was the most valuable was the early advisor. And that was you would help get another member going in it. And it's the hands-on sitting down with someone else and letting them type on their own laptop or tablet, but let them walk through it and you help them walk through what they actually learn. So at that going, we had 90 people earn the AAA award, and I think things happening. Not all is it that we did get a start going, we got people started, and we continue to encourage people, and even to today, we have people we call Pathways Champions. The big step is just that 5 to 10 minutes to sit down with another member, let them do the clicking, and then encourage them to use it for a few times so that they. And I got to do, because of my experience as a district guide in District U, I was invited to go to Pakistan, Lahore, Pakistan, and talk about the power of communication to 700 people on the other side of the world, of the globe. It's amazing what comes our way through Toastmasters and through learning communication.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cate. Thank you. And now, this is going to be another interesting exercise in technology because our next presenter is not actually in the room. He pre-recorded this because, as I mentioned, George couldn't be around. Let me make sure that I have activated the sound, share computer sound. So hopefully you should all hear him. He recorded this earlier today. And there we are.
Hello, I'm George Marshall, and I'm here with some tips for you on how to pick a path. We have a lot of choices on our paths and pathways. There's 11 different paths. How do you pick the one you want? They focus on different competencies, different skills. That's a lot to choose from. What I'm going to do today is to show you how the paths are structured so that you can zero in on the paths that make the most sense for you and your goals. Let's take a look. How to pick a path. Paths are grouped by the skills that we learn in doing them. There's 2 different focuses. Public speaking is obviously an important focus for any path in our Pathways program, but we also have a focus on leadership, and by leadership we're referring to all of the competencies offered in Pathways: interpersonal communication, strategic leadership, and management. Now, the paths are grouped, and in one group, all the projects are public speaking focused. That is, all of the projects focus on giving a speech of some kind. In a second group, still we have a big emphasis on public speaking, but we also introduce some leadership type projects, kind of lightweight leadership projects. In group 3, we increase the number of leadership projects somewhat. We call this a moderate level. And in group 4, there's a substantial emphasis on doing leadership projects, along, of course, with public speaking. All of the paths give you lots and lots of practice in public speaking. Let's take a look at those groups. Group 1, total focus on public speaking, as I said before. All the required projects are speeches. Leadership projects, if you want to do them, are available as electives. In fact, pretty much the same electives are available for all paths, so you can still bend a given path towards your interest by your selection of electives. The paths themselves that are in this group are presentation mastery and the newest path, engaging humor. We can pretty much define a path by its level 5 project that is the most challenging project in the path. And in this group, all of the level 5 projects are longer speeches, 18 to 22 minutes, for example. Let's go on to group 2. In group 2, we've added some focus on leadership or project type work. In other words, in these paths, you're going to do or plan a modest project of some kind and then speak of it. In some of these, you don't even do the project. You simply plan out what you would do if you were going to do the project. These are simple projects, things that can be done in one meeting, even a long session in your club, perhaps. Paths in this section are leadership development, motivational strategies, and visionary communication. An example of a level 5 project in this group is to plan and possibly complete a rather modest project. Now let's look at group 3. We're increasing the content of the leadership now. This is public speaking plus a moderate amount of leadership projects and activities. You're going to be creating and developing plans, working with a team, definitely a leadership activity. The paths in this group include dynamic leadership, strategic relationships, and team collaboration. What's an example of some of the level 5 projects you might do in this group? You would serve at least 6 months in a leadership role. What kind of a leadership role? It could be a club officer, it could be a conference committee chair, it could be some project that you do at work. The key thing is there is a project of some kind and you are leading it with a team. Group 4, this is the most substantial leadership projects that we have in Pathways. Again, you're going to create and develop plans with a team, but these projects tend to be a broader scope than the one we just talked about in Group 3. The paths involved in Group 4 are effective coaching, innovative planning, and persuasive influence. So what would be an example of a level 5 project for Group 4? All of these projects require that you perform what's called a high performance leadership project, or HPL. And that requires substantial planning. You actually need to have a guidance committee, people that are going to advise you on how you're going about your project, as well as an action team, the folks that are actually you're going to lead to carry out some particular goal, the one that you plan with your committee. Very substantial and rewarding efforts. Now let's roll up all the paths together and see how they fit. So in Group 1, we have public speaking, presentation mastery, engaging humor. Group 2, which we might call light leadership, has leadership development, motivational strategies, and visionary communication. Group 3 has more moderate leadership activities with dynamic leadership, strategic relationships, and team collaboration. And Group 4, which emphasizes strong leadership projects, is effective coaching, innovative planning, and persuasive influence. You're wondering what the popularity of these is? The number 1 path that's been picked so far worldwide is innovative planning, Group 4. Second path is presentation mastery in Group 1. Third one is dynamic leadership in Group 3. The fourth one is, again, a strong leadership project, effective coaching. And the fifth one is leadership development in our light leadership group. Sound intriguing? You have 11 paths to choose from. So Pathways offers us choices. So whatever your goals are in Toastmasters, there's probably a path just right for you. So pick your favorite flavor of path and get started.
Wow, I was actually going to say thank you so much, George, and then I realized, no, he's not even here. But thank you, George. On the recording, you hear this. Let us now move on to our last, but definitely not the least, panelist. Let us all welcome Julie Kertesz.
When I gave my first presentation to Pathway Guides in Australia, all the way from London, Carole named my presentation Up Close and Personal. And that is what I will do today. So, besides, I borrowed, not stolen, but borrowed from Michelle, the three things making words beginning with the same. So let's speak about virtus, values, and values. I had seen that we have virtus, but most importantly, I have to tell you, I don't have one virtue at all. Patience. And because I don't have patience, was that 2 years ago, together with Brian and Matthew, we went to the second pilot in District of Virginia, near Washington, D.C., and remote access, we joined a club together. In end of March, and since then, in 2 years, I have to try to share with you if I can. Here. So do you see my badges? Okay, so I finished level 1 10 times and level 1 9 times until now. And please, Carole, don't take away my level 1 because I like it. I love it. Every time I do it again, I love it again. I never get enough of it. Values. One of my values is persistence. Being persistent can be good or bad. In the case of Pathway, I had to have a lot of persistence at the beginning because I had a lot of problems, and the first problem was that I went the first day and the navigator bombed with me. And I had to persist and go back. And then I was in an icebreaker prison and couldn't finish the project. And someone had to come all the way from Toronto to take me out of that. And as many things, problems I had, I gained something. From then on, I could help others. I could go to Brian and tell him, put that pop up, let it pop up. And instead of 4 hours with 4 hours with programmers on Toastmaster International, which he tried before, in 2 minutes, he has his system going. Now, I would like to share with you another yes, here. So one of my preferred project was blogging. And I began blogging also almost 2 years ago, not exactly 2 years now, in the beginning of May at level 3. And here is the navigator. The navigator writing about the new navigator become my most visited post. So another thing I learned is to Zoom together with others whenever they need, sharing screens in Zoom, and I become thus pathway detective. And I can detect everyone problem when it arrives and help them, whether it takes 2 minutes or an hour. And I became also passionate of pathway because of people.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Julie. And so we're done with our 7 panelists. And if in case you're wondering, 7, wasn't that a bit too much? Well, I wasn't sure if all the people I'd asked, George, for example, was not, he said he couldn't make it. And then just last night, he said, well, maybe I can. And so he did a recording. And then Cate Arnold also, we weren't sure, but then she managed it, although her internet was really slow because she's down in Eastern Oregon. That's why we have 7 panelists. But thank you so much to everyone. Each person brought a certain flavor, a certain different perspective to how you can help your members get started on pathways. So at this point, if there are any questions or comments, we have very limited time, but I'm sure that my decision to include all 7, because they were all available, Cate Arnold, George Marshall, plus the 5 who had already committed to be on the panel, having 7 instead of 5 just made for so much more information. If anybody has any questions, you can type it on the chat. And while waiting for questions to come up on the chat, let me ask a question from any of the panelists, or all, just very quickly in a few words. Tell us, what motivated you yourself to get started on Pathways when you did?
We have a question from Nick, first of all.
Oh, we do? Where is that?
Yes, okay. Nick Placani.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I have a question for the gentleman who talked about troubleshooting issues, finding solutions for example, the technical problems that we have with Pathways sometimes. A lot of the people that have started Pathways recently in my club are having issues watching the videos, and the videos are stopping or buffering every few seconds. I mean, I actually tried it before coming on here, and one video I watched was buffering every 30 seconds and it would stop or stall for around about 5 to 8 seconds each time. So how do I actually explain to somebody to stick with it and maybe even download the video onto the hard disk, and maybe they don't understand that. It's one of the few technical issues I've come across with which I've not been able to handle fully.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you're asking about the videos on Toastmasters International website? Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody can quickly unmute any of the panelists? Just quick answer. Yes, let's Carole.
I'm wondering if it might be best for them to access those same videos on YouTube where the buffering may not be a problem. It might be that it's coming from the Toastmaster International site itself where the buffering is happening. And I know that some of those introductory videos are also on YouTube. You could grab the address for those to send to them.
Okay, it's definitely on the Toastmasters website. Other videos on other sites are working perfectly well.
Yes, that's a great suggestion. Perhaps if you find those that are really good, upload them on YouTube, and then YouTube is a much faster process than Toastmasters. Do we have any other questions, Carole? Because if not, I'd like to
No,
go.
none in the chat panel.
Okay, so I would like to go back to that question that I posed earlier. In a few words, tell us, panelists, tell us what motivated you yourself to get started on Pathways when you did. Yes, Julie, and then Carole.
I was RIP. I cannot pronounce it even, its name. Almost as long as Brian, following Pat Johnson, who once was visiting us and inspired me. And I was trying as a Pathway ambassador to tell about Pathway. And the only thing I could tell that it has no competent leadership manual, which I heard, and that was for me wonderful. I went, you have to say, one time DTM and second time Advanced Communicator Gold, and I did not want to make that manual second time.
Amen to that. Amen to that, Julie. I have that same feeling. Carole.
Yes, my greatest prompt to get into Pathways was the fact that there were hundreds behind me waiting to find out, how do I work this thing? I really needed to be up front, fast track my way through it so that I could help others. And the other reason for me was that it provided a necessary jolt to the system, because I'd been there and done that, and things were getting a little bit samey. So I needed something new. And finally, we've got e-learning in Toastmasters. I was very happy.
Wonderful. Lori, since you're on my screen right now, do you want to answer that?
Sure. I did it because I was motivated for a couple of reasons. Being the lead Pathways guide, I felt I had to set an example. And also because I love new things and I love learning. And so it was something new, and it was online, and so that's something I naturally gravitate toward. But also the learning experience, so that I could teach others after having the experience too.
Right, right. And Brian, I see your hand up.
Well, I was intrigued right from the very get-go when we got that email from the world headquarters looking for, I don't know, it was masters or whatever it was, and ambassadors they were looking for. And then when Pat did, after, I think it was, they'd been working on it almost 4 years at that point, behind the scenes, and she did that presentation in Kuala Lumpur, and I was watching it live. And what got me was that thing about mentorship, and that they were introducing this mentor path thing in there. And I thought it was going to be a requirement for the DTM. I'm kind of disappointed that it's not, because it's an excellent program to go through, and I think it should be part of that. And that's what hooked me. And then Julie's been visiting one of my hybrid clubs right from the get-go, since we started doing that.
Yes, you both have been partnering almost at the same time. Great partnership, Brian. Have I missed anybody among the panelists? Cate, I believe, yes.
I love learning and I love teaching. And when I got out of college in 1982, my first job was writing programs to take people from their file rooms to their computer rooms with the IBM mainframes. And I'd seen, again, working with people, it's always so hard to get to the system. So I was interested in learning it first. Joined a club at Toast of Richmond in District 57, so I could use it first by participating online. And then I was able to launch off as a guide, and I just really found it valuable and fun to help people learn how to use the new system. Learning a new system.
Thank you. And so it seems like there's a common thread with all the panelists, that Oh, I suddenly realized, Randy, I'm sorry. How about to ask you, Randy, please?
Two things. One is I like to help people, and I thought this was going to be a great opportunity. And a lot of new members do look up to the older members with this stuff, like it or not. The other thing is so many competent communicator manuals I can do, and I really didn't have a whole lot of interest in advanced communicator manuals, and just one DTM was enough for me. So really wanted to try something new.
Great. And I know that, Randy, of all of us, I think you struggled to get into it. And I love how you found solutions and then started helping others. That was really great. So at this point, it is 1/2 the hour. And those who know me know I'm crazy about starting and ending on time. However, because we had 2 panelists who brought a lot of additional value, the time for the panel discussion itself extended. And I have a question on the floor that Carole would like to ask. What path will you do next and why? If we go around with each of the panelists, that will take at least 5 minutes. So are the panelists all ready to stay for another 5 minutes? Just nod? Yes. So let's answer that question. What path will you do next and why? I think the why is the more important one. So let's start with, who wants to start? Randy. Why don't we start with Randy first? Because I almost forgot you the first time.
Well, I had two paths right now with let's see, motivational strategies and dynamic leadership. I wanted to get away from the high performance leadership for a little bit. I may go back to effective coaching since it was my first choice after those two, but definitely want to get the motivational strategies and the next dynamic leadership done.
Okay, so you want to focus on those two. Next, can you, who's next on my screen? What about Cate?
I am excited about doing the humorous speech, what do we call it, effective humor? Because I have this idea of, I call it impeccable speaking. And it's part of what I had to learn as a Pathways Guide, talking to people around the world. How do I make sure that what I'm saying is safe and clear and doesn't offend people? And so learning how to do impeccable humor, for instance, impeccable humor, you don't laugh at other people's expense, right? That's one of the things. So I'm looking really forward to doing humor and then talking about what's appropriate humor and what's not, or when things could be around the world and you don't even know how people are going to interpret what you're doing. So you want it to be impeccable, something that people will enjoy and feel good about, not be offended, or those type of issues. So I'm excited to do that.
That's great. And I can tell you, because I'm starting on level 5 of engaging humor, I can tell you that there will be several opportunities for you to do what you're saying. That's a great path, Cate. Who's next up? Brian, yes.
I took the assessment and I had looked already at the stuff because Judy was already feeding me all kinds of information. Talk about a Pathways detective. She was a Pathways detective 2 years ago. And I sort of made my mind up what it was. So I took the assessment. Well, visionary communication wasn't on the list. So I chose that. And it probably will always be my favorite because that's when I met a lot of my online friends here in person in Vancouver, because that was my HPL project to bring the convention to some of the people in the outside world using Zoom.
Okay, so Brian, what I'm hearing is what you gained from a path. The question you're really curious about
in that particular, there was a lot of planning and a lot of coordination of a lot of people. So teamwork, I guess, is the main thing.
Okay, so are you saying that your next path will be team collaboration then? Because we want to know what your next path will be and why.
Oh no, I'm on the same one you are, engaging humor.
Okay, well, Brian has, I guess. Okay, so that's your answer. Thank you. Who's next? Julie, because you've been mentioned. Would you like to answer next? What's going to be your next path? Although I think you've already got all of them.
I finished 5 completely, and I am now on 4 different paths. And I do 2 paths now, which are very interesting. one is the same as all of you told, enhancing humor, or whatever E means.
Engaging.
And I am on level 3 because I want to go slowly and incorporate humor even in the project which are not asking me to do it. And I am in motivation strategy for many, many months because I decided I will do every elective of that path. And I just finished level 3 with all 12 electives. And now I am doing level 4, which is very difficult because it has some projects which I have to learn how to do, like podcast, 1 hour podcast, and so on.
Okay, so thank you. So what we're getting from it is that that question is a different one for you because you have all paths already. So it's really more of which path are you going to focus on. What about Lori?
But I can tell I will not focus on any path who finish with high performance leadership.
Okay, we got that. We got that. Thank you. Lori, which path are you going to go on next?
Well, I'm not sure. I need some suggestions.
Engaging humor. You got to get it. It's so fun.
I'm trying to figure out which path to get for my second free path, and I want to decide soon. I've taken the assessment a couple times. I've looked at them. I can't quite decide, but I'll figure something out.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. I have a feeling that, oh, there you are. I knew I missed someone. Carole, the person who asked the question.
I've got a suggestion for Laurie because I was inspired by listening to George in that little video. And I want to know, why is innovative planning so popular? So my next path is going to be innovative planning when I've finished my team collaboration, which is path number 4. And another reason for choosing IP is that in one of my land-based clubs, almost everyone has chosen innovative planning. And I thought, I need to be there with my group. So why not choose IP, Laurie?
I'll add some consideration.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me see. Have I covered all the panelists? 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe I have, and we are now at 6:38, which is going past our time. Judy, I see your hand up. Could you make your point as briefly as you could, please? Thank you.
Yes.
Julie.
George Marshall told us he spoke with the programmers, and assessment is geared toward showing innovative planning anytime or more time than other. So that is why so many choose, because they were streamlined there.
Guided. Nudged. Okay, well, thank you so much. And this discussion could go on, I can see, because from what I'm sensing, people are just getting revved up to talk and discuss more about their favorite paths, their reasons, their experiences. However, we have extended, and at this point, I believe that we owe it to our listeners as well as ourselves to wrap up with thank you to all of you, the panelists. We could not have had this panel without you, obviously, and for people who have inspired us to learn and grow and continue to explore some more. And one thing I can tell you, a little warning, is this is not going to be the last time you will be hearing from me knocking on your door saying, hey, what about a panel discussion? The team has been wonderful. And for everyone who is with us right now live, as well as those who will be listening and viewing later on, give us your suggestions on what would be the next topic for a panel discussion, and perhaps suggestions on people that whom you believe would be able to bring a lot of value, in addition to our folks who are here with us now, who have been amazing, truly amazing. But obviously we don't want to use up our credit with them, so we will probably have to rotate and invite other panelists next time. but we will definitely have other panel discussions, all of them focused on how we can make pathways easier and more appealing, and just help people to fall in love with pathways like Julie has, obviously, and most of us to lesser degrees. So thank you again very much. I will now turn off the recording, and you are very free to stay on.